The Vorthak had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years through the simple act of consumption, not of flesh or energy, but of minds themselves. Their psychic tendrils could reach across star systems, drawing the consciousness from any sentient being and adding it to their collective neural network. Each absorbed mind became another node in their vast mental web, increasing their knowledge and power exponentially. Captain Sarah Chen was the first human they encountered. The exploration. Vessel Endurance had been mapping the outer rim when the Vorthak found them. Sarah watched helplessly as her crew collapsed one by one, their eyes rolling back as their minds were torn from their bodies and transmitted across space to the Vorthak homeworld of Nexus Prime. She alone remained standing on the bridge, protected by a freak interaction between her neural implant and the ship's quantum field generator. "Fascinating," came a voice that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. "This species resists our harvest. No matter. We shall take you last, little creature, and learn your secrets." Sarah gritted her teeth and activated the ship's emergency protocols. If she was going to die, she'd make sure Earth knew what was coming. But as she reached for the communications console, psychic tendrils wrapped around her mind like iron chains. "Resistance is pointless," the voice whispered. "Your thoughts, your memories, your very essence will join our collective. We are eternal. We are—" The voice stopped abruptly as Sarah's consciousness struck their network. On Nexus Prime, 10 billion Vorthak minds suddenly convulsed in unison. The mental absorption that had worked flawlessly for millennia hit something it had never encountered before. The chaotic, contradictory, impossible storm that was human consciousness. Sarah's mind didn't integrate cleanly into their collective. Like every other species, instead, it exploded through their network like a virus of pure chaos. Her memories of loss carried the weight of genuine grief that the Vorthak couldn't process. Her capacity for love burned through their cold logic like acid. Her ability to hold two contradictory thoughts simultaneously shattered their binary thinking patterns. But worst of all was her imagination. Humans were the only species the Vorthak had encountered that could envision things that didn't exist and believe in them so strongly that they became real in the mind. Sarah's consciousness flooded their network with impossible concepts. Flying, carpets and talking animals, magic systems and faster-than-light travel, gods and monsters and dreams made manifest. The Vorthak Collective, built on the orderly absorption of logical alien minds, couldn't contain the beautiful madness of human creativity. Their network began to fracture as Sarah's thoughts propagated through every connected mind. A Vorthak engineer suddenly found himself believing in dragons. A military commander became convinced that love could stop starships. A philosopher began to question whether reality itself was just someone else's dream. Across Nexus Prime, the population began to scream, not from pain, but from the overwhelming experience of feeling for the first time. Sarah's emotional capacity, honed by millions of years of human evolution, infected every Vorthak consciousness. They experienced joy and sorrow, hope and despair, anger and compassion in rapid succession. Their orderly minds, designed for cold efficiency, couldn't handle the tsunami of human feeling. The Vorthak leadership tried desperately to sever the connection, but it was too late. Sarah's consciousness had already spread too far, carried by their own network. They watched in horror as their perfect collective began to fragment into billions of individual minds, each one now touched by humanity's gift for chaos and contradiction. Some Vorthak adapted. They learned to embrace the madness, discovering creativity and emotion for the first time in their species' history. They began to question their role as galactic predators and started making art instead of war. Others couldn't handle the change and retreated into catatonic states, overwhelmed by the sudden awareness of their own individuality and the weight of emotions they'd never felt before. But the most affected were those who absorbed the deepest parts of Sarah's mind, her memories of human history. They experienced secondhand the Holocaust and the Renaissance, the Dark Ages and the Enlightenment, humanity's capacity for both breathtaking cruelty and transcendent beauty. They saw a species that could create poetry in concentration camps and wage war over philosophical differences. The Vorthak had thought themselves supreme because they could absorb and process any mind they encountered. But human consciousness wasn't meant to be processed. It was meant to be experienced, with all its contradictions and chaos intact. Within days, Vorthak society collapsed, not from external attack or internal revolution, but from the simple fact that their citizens could no longer agree on a shared reality. Some believed they were living in Sarah's memories of 20th century Earth. Others became convinced they were characters in one of the human stories that had leaked from her imagination. A few developed what could only be described as hope. Another, uniquely human trait that proved utterly foreign to their former collective consciousness. The planet that had once hummed with orderly mental traffic now echoed with sounds the Vorthak had never made before. Laughter, weeping, singing, and the gentle madness of 10 billion newly individual minds trying to understand what it meant to be alone inside their own heads. Sarah's body died when the Endurance ran out of life support 3 days later. But her mind lived on in the Vorthak network, a ghost in their machine that whispered impossible things about love and dreams and the strange, wonderful chaos of being human. The galaxy's greatest predators had become its newest philosophers, artists and dreamers, all because they tried to digest something that was never meant to be consumed. The stars themselves seemed to laugh at the irony.